This portion of the news brought to you by McDonald's. McDonald's, I'm loving it.
Health officials are laying fears of a possible TB outbreak at Her Majesty's prison.
Now, some police officers sounded the alarm. However, as Janaea Noel Ferguson tells us tonight, authorities knocked that down, saying there are no confirmed cases.
The Police Staff Association raising concerns about an alleged outbreak of tuberculosis among inmates at Her Majesty's prison.
The Central Police Station and the Nassau Street Police Station, which receives all of the inmates coming from Her Majesty's prison, where there's continuous rumors of TB and other contagious and infectious diseases. These two stations that receive all of these persons are not sanitized on a regular basis.
Deputy Chair of the PSA, Sergeant Frankie Campbell, says it's one of the many challenges police officers are forced to deal with.
So then our officers, who are expected to risk life and limb during the day and then go home in the evening and carry these infectious diseases home to their families.
Now, our ZNS News sought answers on those claims made by PSA executives. And according to Deputy Chief Medical Officer Dr. DeLon Brennan, there have been no confirmed cases of TB at the prison, but he says that does not mean that those entering the facility have not been exposed to the disease.
I wouldn't say that I've heard of confirmed cases of tuberculosis in the prison. There have been people that are exposed to tuberculosis in their communities and will come to prison. So when they are tested to see if they've been exposed to TB, you will see that they have a positive test for being exposed. But when we've done x-rays on most of those patients, we have not seen any evidence of TB. So those patients are then put on prophylaxis to protect them from going from exposed into actual cases of tuberculosis.
Now, according to Dr. Brennan, given the nature of the prison population, the ability for diseases like TB to spread is high. To that end, he said preventative measures are taken.
When people come in on remand or where they're actually sentenced to prison, we screen all of them, and what we try to do is make sure as much as possible that we treat them. Even before, if they've been exposed, we treat them with prophylaxis to protect them from actually developing disease. But it is something we have to be very vigilant about. And so what they may be responding to is actually people being screened for being exposed to TB, actually opposed to active tuberculosis cases.
Meanwhile, Campbell says that every effort should be made to ensure that police officers are protected. Janaea Noel Ferguson, ZNS Network News.
It's a program created to show at-risk youth the harsh consequences that come with leading a life of crime. Although shock treatment is still in its infancy stage, the National Security Minister says young men are already being impacted, and he hopes it will be the first step to reducing crime in the country. We get that report tonight from Cleopatra Murphy.
Government is placing high hopes in its new shock treatment initiative. The program is designed to scare at-risk young men away from a life of crime, and it is hoped that shock treatment will be the single most impactful initiative that will touch Bahamians from every walk of life. Highlighting the program in Parliament yesterday, National Security Minister Dr. Bernard Nottage said the young man got a startling look at where a life of crime leads.
We have exposed them to what happens to them if they fall afoul of the law and get arrested, going to a police station to be processed, if necessary being put in a cell and dragged before the courts. We've taken them to the prison to see what happens when you're admitted to the prison, Mr. Speaker. We've taken them to the graveyard to show what happens as a result of violent crime.
2 episodes of shock treatment have already aired on ZNS. Nottage says his ministry is taking a multi-tiered approach to tackling crime, and the initiative is already having an impact.
There was one boy in the group who, when he was taken to the graveyard, realized that he was in the graveyard where his brother had been buried, who had been killed as a result of violent crime. And of course, he broke down crying.
The National Security Minister says the country must invest in its young people to effectively reduce the level of crime facing the country, and hopes shock treatment will be an eye-opener.
For some time now, I've been articulating that the ministry is taking a holistic, multifaceted, and comprehensive approach. This shock treatment touches all of the stakeholders. There's something instructive in it for everyone. something that can cause us to take a closer look at what we are doing now to impact our young people.
Cleopatra Murphy, ZNS Network News.
Coming up in the Bahamas tonight, he's the first Bahamian in 17 years to be awarded a special academic scholarship. We've got the details, so stay tuned.
This portion of the news was brought to you by McDonald's. McDonald's, I'm loving it.
This is your Royal Fidelity Business News. I'm Sia Scatterly. Rosewood at Bahamar is sending 4 associates to train at properties in the United States, Mexico, and the Caribbean. During their 3-month-long Rosewood immersions, the new associates will receive hands-on instruction that will prepare them to hold prominent leadership positions at Rosewood at Bahamar when the resort opens later this year. Justin King, Vanya Eiffel, LaShanta Smith, and Clarence Albury were handpicked by Rosewood at Bahamar's managing director, Luis Fernandez, to participate. Following the completion of the training, King will serve as the resort's assistant financial controller. Smith will become the assistant executive housekeeper. Eiffel will hold the position of front office manager, and Albury will act as the resort's training manager. In other business news, the board of directors of AML Food Limited agreed to reinstate their share buyback plan. They deemed it prudent, given the illiquid state of the market, to buy back available ordinary shares and thereby provide increased earnings per share and maintain stable or increased selling prices for those shareholders needing to divest their portfolio. A mandate was given that the share repurchase plan may not exceed 10% of the current outstanding shares. The program will be renewed annually to assess its viability for shareholders. And in international news, Amazon has unveiled its first handset offering 3D visuals thanks to 4 face tracking cameras on its front and gesture controls. The Fire phone allows its users to change an image's perspective by moving their head rather than creating pop-out effects. The owner can also scroll through a web page or bring up menus by tilting the smartphone in their hand. Chief Executive Jeff Bezos announced the phone at a press event in Seattle. This has been your Royal Fidelity Business News. I'm Sia Scatterly.